They told me at the hospital that my hip had healed enough to send me home, and I actually believed my 4 kids would be there to help me through it, just like they'd sworn they would. Instead, I watched an empty visitor's chair for 15 straight days. My calls rang out into nothing. Their promises just dissolved into quiet. The one person who actually showed up for me was a nurse named Holly. The morning they discharged me, she offered to phone for a cab, but I just smiled, booked my own ride, and walked out through those doors by myself. 72 years old, and it took strangers to teach me what real kindness looked like, because my own blood couldn't be bothered. When I finally got my key in the front door, the quiet inside the house hit me like a wall. I opened the fridge and found next to nothing. A bottle of water, a shriveled lemon, a stick of butter. My children hadn't just left me stranded in a hospital bed. Not one of them had wondered if I'd even have a meal waiting for me. I sat down at my kitchen table and let my mind run back over everything I'd given them across the years. Thousands of dollars handed to my eldest, Brent. Months of rent I let my daughter Nicole skip on one of my properties. Years of pricey health coverage I quietly paid for my son Trevor. A monthly check I still mailed to my youngest, Austin, a grown man who never once asked me to stop. Decades spent putting them first, always assuming they'd return the favor when I needed it. I was dead wrong. Instead of falling apart, I pulled out the worn black ledger my late husband Raymond and I once used to track our money. Every loan, every skipped rent check, every monthly deposit, all of it was logged in those pages. Staring at that ledger, something in me finally clicked. My kids hadn't drifted away because they were busy. They'd stayed away because they were certain I'd always bail them out no matter what. That same afternoon, I rang up Charles Bennett, the lawyer Raymond had trusted for years, and asked him to come by so we could go through my estate and rewrite my will from scratch. When Charles showed up, he brought along paperwork my husband had drafted long before he passed. Then he told me something I'd completely forgotten myself. The ground under our old rental units had turned into some of the priciest commercial real estate in the whole city. Developers were already dangling offers north of $20 million. I just sat there, stunned. My children pictured me as a widow scraping by on a small fixed income, never suspecting I was sitting on a small fortune. Days later, I asked all 4 of them over for Sunday dinner. They walked through my door, acting concerned about my recovery, but it didn't take long for their real agenda to surface. They floated the idea of moving me into assisted living and taking charge of my accounts, insisting I could no longer be trusted to manage my own affairs. Before I could respond, Charles Bennett stepped through my front door with his briefcase in hand, and the whole room went dead silent. I opened my ledger and read every outstanding debt out loud, one by one. Brent's unpaid loans, Nicole's months of free rent, Trevor's years of covered insurance premiums, Austin's monthly checks he'd taken without ever trying to stand on his own. Then Charles set the property appraisal down on the table. Every one of them went white when they saw the number. Over $20 million. Their anger evaporated in an instant, replaced by frantic apologies and sudden declarations of love. But I saw it clearly now. They weren't scared of losing their mother. They were scared of losing the inheritance they'd already spent in their heads. I told them, calm as could be, that every debt would be settled, every handout was finished, and my new will would no longer favor people who vanished the moment I actually needed them. Once they'd gone, I looked at the dinner nobody had touched and called Holly, the nurse who'd treated me better than my own family ever had. She came over with her husband and kids, and we shared that meal together instead. Their laughter filled rooms in my house that had been silent for far too long. That whole ordeal reshaped my life completely. I sold the land, launched the Raymond and Lorraine Foundation, and poured my fortune into helping elderly people who'd been cast aside by their own families. Looking back now, the real lesson was never about the money. It was about self-worth. Loving your children should never mean letting them walk all over you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is finally say no. Those 15 lonely days in that hospital bed turned out to be the start of the richest, most meaningful chapter of my whole life.